Oh my gosh, what is this thing?
It's my MINISPLIT.
Folks, what we're gonna take a look at today is my friend Keri here just installed a MINISPLIT air conditioner onto her van, and we're gonna learn a little bit about that and how you guys might wanna consider getting something like this because it is amazing. So Keri, thank you so much.
Looking forward to it.
Right.
We're starting our timer. We just turned on the air conditioning unit. It is 86, almost 87 degrees inside. Indoor sensor, while the control is our outdoor sensor right by my sliding door where it's 84 in the sun. I just turned on the unit. It's set for 22 degrees C, and we're gonna leave it alone. My solar is currently off, and I have about 300 amp hours of lithium batteries available to it.
So I can already feel the coolness coming back towards me. How long does it usually take for you to cool it down in here?
I mean, it can be a matter of minutes depending on where in the van I'm at, how cold I'm trying to make it. For instance, if I was just to lay here wanting to take a nap with a cool breeze, I just turn it on and forget about it. If I want to leave it for a little bit, it can take half an hour to bring it down 10 degrees. But I haven't done. That's why we're doing some of these experiments to find out just how long it actually takes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it was stuffy in here up until about 30 seconds ago, and it like as soon as you turn that on, it already feels so much nicer in here. So Keri, what is the #1 reason that you wanted an air conditioner?
I've got two dogs, or I had two dogs when I first got on the road. Now I have one little doubled coat mini Aussie, and she's the light of my life, and I want to make sure that she's comfortable and safe when I go on hikes or when I go into the grocery store. Second to that, I work in my van full time. I often have a lot of meetings, and in my first couple years on the road, I can't tell you how many times I parked, found a wonderful spot. I'm in 4 hours of meetings. 4 hours later, it's 90 degrees in my van, and I haven't had a minute to move to something shadier. I have been on the road off and on for 6 years. I've been in my van for 4.
All right, and this is not your first foray into air conditioners. So what are the other options that you had, and tell me maybe some good and bad points about them.
So I have tried 4 other air conditioners. They fall into 2 major categories. One was a window air conditioning unit, which a friend of mine helped me contrive a frame. It was hanging out of my passenger window. It was not a permanent install. So you could see that as a pro or a con, but I certainly couldn't drive anywhere with that, even reposition my van a couple feet because it would fall out. And it did fall out several times. The second type that I used, and I had different versions of it, were portable units. Those are the big ones that you can buy at Home Depot that are usually a couple $100. I tried a 12 volt 4000 BTU one. That one was woefully underpowered. I tried a 7000 BTU from Home Depot. Again, it didn't even put a dent. It wouldn't even maintain the temperature under similar situation. Eventually what I got was a 13,000 BTU unit, which, while it was able to cool my van, they're all wildly inefficient. You take 2 big tubes, one is an input, one is an output, and so you have this really hot air that comes out of the portable unit that needs to be vented outside. And one problem with both of those solutions was that it required the cooling unit to be at the front in the cab, which is actually fundamentally also the greatest source of heat. Whereas I spend most of my time back here, and I actually have some thermal curtains that I can block off, but I wasn't able to do that. And so it's just a inefficiency in the design of the system, because it's both fighting against the hottest air that's coming in and trying to heat that area, as opposed to compartmentalizing the van, which this solution allows me to do, and to cool the area that I need to live in, while also sectioning off the hottest part of my van. This is on my door compared to the other ones, which were temporary installations and took, you know, at least, I don't know, 2 or 3 square feet in my van, when I really only have about 20 or 30 square feet to live in, and they were all bulky, and you had to deal with the storage. So some people might think it's a pro to have a mobile installation or something that can be removed. I found it was actually a big con because it required me to like find space for it.
So you've been very happy with this latest edition, this latest iteration.
Oh yes. I have a what's known as a backpack mini split. This is an Alibaba special. In other words, I got it off of a second reseller on eBay. You can find versions of this on Amazon, but I bought it directly from eBay on the recommendation of a friend. And that friend has a 70-pound Malamute, 200 amp hours of lithium battery, and I think about 300 watts of solar. And I saw it when we were down in Baja, and we had couple 90-degree days. The brand that he had was something called a Treeligo. His was a 24 volt. Mine is the 12 volt version. And it's a 12 volt compressor that's attached to the back of my van. I'll show you a little bit later, but it's all installed in on one door. I still have access to the door. I can open it. It's right by my head, so it cools me exactly where I sleep.
Yeah, and it really doesn't take up much room. It doesn't stick out very far.
No.
How much did you end up paying for this unit all told?
So I spent more than other people need to, and in part I was so excited to get it, I didn't do a lot of comparison shopping. Because I got it through a reseller, you can get them as cheap as $400 or $500 on eBay. I've seen them, the exact same unit, for as expensive as $2,000 on Amazon, depending on which reseller you get it from. I would say plan to spend around probably $700 for someone that actually has more than a couple reviews on eBay. Like, after you do the install, there's an extra piece that they have to do with a specialized piece of equipment. I just went to an auto AC specialist. Mm-hmm. It was $100, maybe 45 minutes to drop the van off. They vacuumed it, added all the Freon, made sure all the connections were sound, and I was on my way. The thing that really sold me on this was that my friend had a somewhat minimal lithium-based system and could keep his dog really happy.
And so what would you say would be the bare minimum that someone would need for a system like this regarding solar and lithium?
Well, if you want to run it all day, certainly the 200 amp hours I think is a minimum. I would say at least 300 watts of solar on the roof as well.
That's not a huge system that you'd
Right.
need, and you just have to make decisions of what you need to use and what time.
Exactly.
And just to cool it off would really help out, just to take
Right.
down that heat.
Right. I mean, we're down, it's 80 degrees. I'm down 20 amp hours in total, and it's that with my inverter and the rest of my setup is pulling about 650 watts right now, which is about what that window unit pulled. So it's been running for about 25 minutes, and it's 80 degrees in here. And actually it's increased in temp outside. It's 88 degrees on that thermometer outside. So it's still fighting against that increase in temp. The other thing we're doing here is all my windows are uncovered. Like, I wanted this to be kind of a realistic simulation for if you just wanted to run into the grocery store or something like that. If I were to actually close off my cab, cover that window right there, which is right in the sun, it would probably cool down even faster. Okay, so one of the downsides to having something that is thermostatically controlled at its source is that it's actually, you might be able to hear it a little bit in the background, but the compressor is cycling off and on because over my bed, it's actually reached the 72 degrees that it wants, right? And so it's just cycling on as needed to maintain the temperature. However, over here, it's 80 degrees. What I would normally do is turn a fan on because this pulls about 2 or 3 watts and it runs on battery. This was another CheapRVLiving recommendation from a couple of years ago. And this actually makes a huge difference to cool off that side of the van and distribute the cool air. So we just turned the unit off. It was running for 30 minutes and it pulled a total of 22 amp hours with no solar turned on. It ended up being about 80 degrees in there at the end. Had I ramped up the fan, the whole thing would have been 72 degrees. Really comfortably. The mini split unit itself really just consists of an air conditioner compressor and some cooling. There's a fan in there and a couple other components. And the reason it's called a mini split is because the compressor is outside and it is split from the blower or the head unit, which is mounted on the inside of my door.
Okay.
And so you still have refrigerant lines that are normally internal on other units, but there's a couple lines here for positive and negative electric, and then we have a high pressure and a low pressure refrigerant line, and we also have an electrical communication basically for the controller inside to send electrical signals to the unit out here. My friend and I spent a couple of days on the install. Frankly, the thing that took the most time was going back and forth from the hardware store trying to figure out what bolt sizes we wanted to use.
Always.
I'm one of those people that likes to, measure once and try to fit it 3 times, and it usually works by the 4th. The outdoor unit itself is actually mounted on a piece of plywood. It's just simple 3-ply that I got at the local hardware store. That I mounted directly through the sheet metal. I put the holes in, I sealed the holes with some Rust-Oleum paint just to make sure that we don't get any rust on the rough edges where we put them in. I also, once we mounted it, I sealed the inside with silicone, again, just to make sure that we don't have any moisture intruding. Let's go ahead and open it. So you guys are in luck. You get to see all of the install.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So these are the refrigerant lines. I bought a one-size-fits-all with flexible lines. If you have a little bit more planning involved in your install, you can actually measure the distance of how you're going to put it together, and some of the manufacturers will probably cut the lines and adjust the fittings for you. In this case, this is just a kit that had 10 feet of flexible line. For your benefit, you get to see the install, but you could imagine it wouldn't be that hard to actually recess some of this stuff inside the door and have a neat panel in front of it. So this is the inside gasket. We have the high pressure and low pressure refrigerant lines right here. We have that communication line that goes to the head unit right here. The power is supplied by these really big 4-aught cables that go right to my bus bar. The positive one has a resettable circuit breaker that I added just because it never hurts to overfuse. This is actually the line that goes to the head unit, and this is where the signals from the thermostat up there travel outside and control turning off and on, and how much the fan needs to throttle on. The other things that's always a little bit of a complication with any of these units is that they produce condensation, right? And so this one in particular has 2 ports that the water can come out. So when I installed it at a slight angle. And what's cool about installing it on my back door is that these, you don't really want water in them, but they have weep holes built in. And so we have the condensation line come down and actually feeds out to one of my weep holes right there. That's one less hole I need to put in my door, basically. The thing about the install was, one, trying to figure out how to fit it on the back. We thought it would just be easier to put a board on it, because then we got to choose where we put the different bolts in.
Okay.
And so that actually made the install quite a bit easier because we had a lot more flexibility in how we wanted to position it. One of the funny things about this is that I wanted, obviously, to be legal. I wanted my license plate to be visible, but I also didn't want to lose my beautiful view out my back window.
All right.
And so it actually fits really neatly on that side. I still have full access to my entire garage.
Yeah.
I get in here on a regular basis, and it's all contained in one neat install. And at some point I'll probably clean this up, but for now it's been fine.
So Keri, I thought that the experiment went really well. What did you think of it?
I think it performed just as well as I expected. I kind of wish that I had turned it up on high when we walked away from it for half an hour, because I think that we would have been able to demonstrate that it cools the entire rig down to 72 degrees. Like oftentimes when I've got it on all day, I'll actually need to put on like a jacket or something, or turn it up a little bit, because as you said, it actually gets pretty chilly.
It does.
Once you turn it up and have fans help project that air across the length of the van. But that is an interesting point. You have to keep that in mind, that any thermostatically controlled thing, I have the same issue with my furnace, which is at the front of my van, that oftentimes what you set the thermostat to is not necessarily going to be equivalent on both ends of the van. And so having those portable fans or other ways to move the air across the van, regardless of what air conditioning unit you have, is really important.
So Keri, thank you so much for giving us a full explanation of this unit and also going through the science with us for that unit. So we really appreciate your time and just taking a look at this thing.
You're welcome, Brian. I mean, it's been a real game changer for me. It's been a long, challenging effort for me to try to figure out the right cooling unit. And so I'm really happy to share the solution that I found after spending lots of time and effort excluding other options.
Now, folks out there, what did you think of this unit? Is this something that you guys could incorporate into your vans, into your vehicles? Do you think this would work for you? Or better yet, do you have experience with a unit such as this and have your own review or ideas about it? Please let us know in the comments below. If you got anything out of today's video, please go ahead and give us a big thumbs up, share it with friends, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, we'll see you all down the road. Bye guys.
What I would normally do is I would actually